Okay, so we're back on day 2 on working on the tooling of this sheath. We've done the backgrounding, was the last place that we left off in the last video. So in this video, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to re-wet the leather, and I'm going to start working on some of the foliage parts of this little curl design. And the tool I'm using for that is just like a little crescent shaped bit that has kind of like a seashell texture to it. And how I use this is I come in and I kind of hold this at a tight angle, and I use just this sharp tip here. There's a sharp edge on that, and I use it at an angle, and I go in and I start in all my corners, and I start tapping lightly and working my way up the edge of the pattern. So what I'm doing is putting a arched pattern going towards the center of the design all the way up through this, only using that little corner and the texture that it has. As I start to get into the more open spots like this right here, I can start putting more of this stamping tool down onto the pattern, which is going to bring another stamp all the way out to the edge of where the smooth ridge is. So let me wet this leather, and I'll kind of give you a little quick hint on how that works when we come back. Okay, so we've given the leather good damping with some water again, you know, and I still kind of focused on just the inside of the pattern like I've been doing. And since I've already worked on this and let it dry, this time around I put a little bit more of a coat of water. I kind of coated it, let it soak in a little bit, and then applied another round of it just to kind of soften it up a little bit from the tightness that the leather's gotten in it now that it's shrank from already being wet. So let me grab my mallet, and I'll show you just a little bit of this bit that I was talking about with doing this kind of shade work. So you put it down corner first and working just little baby taps at first, because you don't want to smash too much, and kind of make sure that you do your patterns kind of tight together so you start to end up with a little texture. So I did that part, and let me see if I can get this into focus, and if you can see what that's done. It's kind of made like a seashell edge pattern on that one individual part. And then what I do from here is to just take the detail a little further. I use the opposite edge of it in every little intersection mark where it's left the little serrated edge when you're looking down on it. I match that up per stamp on the other side. So I'm taking a little stamping tool, starting with some baby taps in the corner. You don't want to push it down too far, and just kind of give it some love taps up all the way to the tip. And now it looks like that. So like all the other steps, you know, it really doesn't look like much now. I'm going to go around and I'm going to do some key spots that I feel like need this type of shade work to it. Everybody's designs are different, so just use this look for what parts of the pattern you want to use it for. So I'm going to run around this for a little while, and we'll be back after I feel like I've used this bit for a while. Alright, so I'm back now after a little while of that, and as you can see, I've gone around certain parts of the pattern to start to give it a little more depth and dimension with that stamp. And I'm going around things, and I've left some other things out because they're going to be like separate parts from the pattern, but there's some more stamps around that, and we're starting to get down into the bark of the foliage. So quick intermission for a second, and I'll be right back with the next steps. Alright, back after the intermission. So before in this video series that I've been making on this, I was telling you about how I do the background in different times and stuff. So now you know, is we've started pushing this leather this way and that with these few different stamps that we're using. Some of the spots where, you know, I originally pounded down some of the background is starting to reveal tiny little stuff that I know we could get cleared out in the corners where things are missed, or just things have been pushed or separated to where you're starting to see little minor imperfections in the background, like in this corner here, how that little tiny piece is lifted up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-wet the leather, and I'm going to come around with another one of the teardrop backgrounding bits, again one of the small textured one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to go back and pick out some corners throughout the piece that I want to look like they're sticking up. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to push some of these deeper spots down into the image to where it casts a shadow a little bit better. Trying to get some corners pushed down, not overall whole thing. Like I said, we're not trying to smash through this. This is for the front cover of a knife sheath, so just clearing out some corners and using this time to kind of tidy up in background. I know I kind of got ahead of myself and did some like textures and stuff, so just kind of, this is where you slow down and you kind of get your bits lined up and go back through and fix some stuff that you feel like you could improve on if you were working on your own design. So let me wet this down and we'll do a couple stamps. There might be a little spot here I can show you. There it is. So with the toe in, pushing at an angle, a steeper angle, giving it a little bit of a tap, blending it into everything else, and start to clean it up. So you can see, if I can get it into focus, I apologize for the bad lighting, you guys. There we go. You see the shadow that's casted down in there now. It shows a deeper edge. I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean up other spots like that just to pull that pattern forward, and as well clean up some of the background. So let me go and do those. Alright, so we're back and I've tidied up a little bit of the background, kind of cleaning some things up, getting some of the corners down into set down into the leather a little deeper, just giving it a little bit more depth and dimension. Now the next tool that I'm going to be using is, I do know that this one's called a veiner, like a leaf veining tool, and this is kind of a large one. This one comes with the Tandy Leather Basic 7 kit as well, and basically it leaves an arched stamp, and if you look real close at that angle, there's like a serrated edge on it, and then on the flat portion also has some textures that's just going horizontal there. Now what I'm going to do with this is, on some parts of the pattern, you know, we have some folds here that I haven't been doing too much with. There's certain little parts, but I'm going to kind of come into them and I'm going to start giving them just a little bit of a directional shape with this. So let me get a little spot up here and see if I can't get this in video, and I'll give you an idea of what I'm going to be doing with this one. And I hope the camera doesn't bump around too much with this one. I'm kind of using this tool like I did the crescent shape when I'm taking the pattern into itself in some of the spots. And it leaves a little bit of a deeper gouge. But this is just an added texture for when the stain picks it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this pattern with this veining tool and leave some shapes in through here. You know, kind of practice with this, stamp it on something, you know, a couple times, and use your imagination on what you could use it for in your particular project. So I'll be back here in a moment. Alright, so we're back now after that piece and I came through with the veiner and just kind of put it through in there in random spots, you know, just kind of putting it wherever I feel like I wanted to use it, you know, kind of putting some little segments in the leaves and here and there. But the next step that I'm going to be doing is pretty much the final step with this particular project on how I'm doing the cutting and the stamping, because the rest is going to be mainly staining and the way that I stain it to give it a certain look, you know. So give me a couple minutes, let me track down my knife, and I'll be right back, and we'll start a couple last little decorative cuts. Alright, so I found my swivel knife, and what I'm going to do is just put like some little final touches as far as like some little cuts in the pattern that are also going to pick up a little stain. So there's no, you know, there's no perfect way to put these, you know. Like I said, I'm no professional at this. I just kind of put them in wherever I think that, you know, a little bit of a decorative cut line, and sometimes kind of clean up some of the gouges where we've done some of the tooling. I always follow kind of the pattern and just give it a little flick or two here, kind of like these marks. You know, a couple little decorative swoops coming up, kind of like that.
We went east to Greensburg, Kansas, leaving the devastation behind. Welcome to the Greensburg Visitor Center. 2007, a tornado destroyed our town. Out of the rubble came a dream. A town that was completely destroyed by a tornado.
Sorry if the TV's loud back there, you guys. My Angie's back there watching her TV show, so we gotta share with her on sound time too.
And they knew what they were doing. They got their power from the wind and the sun, their water from the rain.
Let's put a few cuts in. This is going to be something that's going to pick up and hold a little bit of the stain.
Compared to the southwest, the fields were green and fertile.
Get a couple more of these in there.
We wish there were more. The closer we got to the end of our journey, the better we felt. The next day, we hit the outskirts of New York City.
And just a couple little more random ones, just because I like to put just a few in there for the final touches. It just gives it a little something, but the pattern's still a little wet and damp. I kind of got it all in there. Let me cut in, and like I said, I'm no professional. This is just my particular style of leather art. Bringing it down, and then once this dries, I'm going to start my staining process. And how that's going to work is I'm going to take the darkest stain that I have available. You know, it's an antiquing stain. I'm going to kind of water it down a little bit, and I'm going to start with my darkest tones, and I'm going to start painting in the background with a paintbrush. So let me let this dry just a little bit more, and I'll be back, and we'll do just a little bit of staining as well today. That'll probably be the last part for today, is the background part. So right on, I'll be back here in a few. Alright everybody, the leather's dried up a little bit more. still just a little bit damp, but I'm not as concerned about that because this part of the staining process is going to take overnight to dry anyway. So like I said in the last little clip, starting with the background, so what I use is, what I have available right now is a Eco Flow gel tan tint. It's dark brown. That's the darkest tone that I have. So what I'm going to do is use a recycled bottle cap here. And I'm going to put just a little bit of my stain in it because I'm going to be working this in with a little bit of water. And I got my little water canister thing here. But I'm going to get just a little bit of the stain and, you know, kind of mix it up with just a tad bit of water. I don't know if everybody recommends doing this or, you know, all that stuff, but this is just how I do it, you guys. This is my way. So let's get this kind of done here and kind of pick up the pattern and just as carefully as you can start kind of filling in the spots that you want to be the darkest tone of your image. And kind of blend it out. With it being a little wet because of the water, you can kind of pull it, and as the water kind of saturates out of the stain, you can kind of see if you need to make it lighter or darker. Right now it looks very dark, but after it dries and after I smear it around just a little bit more, it's not going to be quite as dark as you would imagine it to. It's going to be kind of a little bit lighter than this for sure, but still a little more translucent to show the under texture of the leather. So there's that part. Not gonna put a whole bunch of this on film just because, you know, it takes a long time and getting in all the little crooks and crevices is time consuming, so I won't bore you with that. So let me kind of get around through here, feather some of this stuff out, and then we'll be back. Alright, so we're back now after the background staining that we did with the paintbrush, like you've seen, and still a little wet. I just got finished up with it, and like I said, you guys, I just went around the outskirts of it and kind of feathered it off into that tooling that I did along the outside edge, that little teardrop shape, and just kind of blended a little bit of that darker stain into it and went around to the spots that I wanted darker and made them darker. That's mostly the spots that are still glossy. So far we got the background. Another step that I may do tonight, I don't know if I'll put that on camera much, is doing just like I did with this, watering down some of the darkest stain, but I do one that's very watered down, and what I'll do is just kind of come in and shade some of the spots in where there's separation between the pieces, just so there's a little bit darker stain down in that. So I don't know, I may or may not do that. We'll just kind of find out in the next video, but I appreciate you guys watching this so far. Like I said in the last one, man, I really hope this is turning into something you guys are enjoying. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and I hope this is helping someone out there. I really hope that, you know, this inspires you to make something just like I've been inspired by all these people. So YouTube, love you guys, and everybody do something fun today. Later.